AskReddit by LBE. Serious, what is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? Attention. Serious. Tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted. https://www.reddit.com/r/wiki/index-wiki_rule_6 in any comment parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please, contact the moderators of this subreddit. Message compose $r AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. To this day, there was a kid in my class that no one else remembers. I distinctly remember playing with this kid in kindergarten, and we were pretty much inseparable. About a month past Christmas break he disappeared. No one remembered him. Not the teachers, or the others in my class. No one. I even asked the school counselor if he was okay, and she humored me by going through records to see if he'd transferred. She couldn't find a thing. I think about it at least once a month. I have something similar. When I was a freshman, I think, in high school we had a pair of new students start who were twins. I remember both of them because while they were twins, they had slight differences so I could tell them apart. Anyways, a few years after high school I get a friend request from one of them. I was looking at her Facebook randomly one day looking at her pictures and didn't see any of her sister, which I thought was odd. I mentioned it to my friend and she looked at me strangely and said she doesn't have a twin. I asked another couple people we went to high school with and they all said the same thing. I have no idea what happened and it still baffles me because I distinctly remember two of them, but apparently there was only one. Was delivering newspapers on my paper route when a long-time customer pulled his car next to me and asked me to just give him his daily newspaper now because he was going on a long trip. I handed him his newspaper then skipped his house as I continued my route. The next day I was collecting the weekly fees. You used to have to go collect the money back then, no internet payment yet, and I went to his house to collect my fee. His wife answers and promptly complains that I missed her house on my deliveries the day before. I explained to her that her husband pulled up next to me. I told her what he said and that I gave him the paper. She started crying, told me that he had died a couple weeks ago and it was obviously not possible that I spoke with her husband the day before. I know what I saw and nearly 30 years later I still think about that situation. I have no way to logically explain what happened and it still gives me the creeps. Did he say where his trip was to? Driving home from work late one night I was followed and it was weird. I left the hospital and turned off the main road to a bunch of side streets I would take. At one point I noticed a car behind me that made the same left turn as me. They sped up to get behind me. I thought nothing of it. Then I briefly thought about running to 7-Eleven to grab some food and turned on my right signal. But I realized I had food at home, so I turned my signal off. The car behind me turned on their right signal and turned it off as well exactly as I had. At that point I got a bit spooked. So I turned my right signal on and they did as well. Instead at the next intersection I turned left even though my right signal was on. They did as well. They proceeded to follow me through a series of odd turns. Eventually I turned onto a cul-de-sac I knew about and figured I could turn around there and look at the driver T. If you suspect you're being followed in the future, make 4 in a row right-hand turns, a square if you will. If the car behind you does the same, you're being followed and you should find a safe place to go. I have a weird memory that's not mine. I'm a small boy with a suit and tie. I'm at a party in a huge ceremonial church or something and there's lots of men and women wearing fancy black clothes. They all get in a circle. It's the middle of the daylight was brightly coming in through the windows and there are oldish couple dancing in the middle of the circle with some very classy fancy music, and I was trying to look at them through people's legs. Suddenly the man falls. No gunshots, no one did anything to him, and then the second he falls everyone starts screaming. People were running away but the men were running towards him. I think I was trampled because I was lying on the floor and then everything goes black. That's all I can remember. This is a clear memory that has stuck with me since I can remember. I'm really creeped out because I know that memory isn't mine. I've never gone. That's creepy AF. But my mind immediately went to that episode of Bob's Burgers where Bob finds out his childhood memory of being attacked by birds was actually a memory of watching the birds. Driving from Northern California to Southern California through the middle of the night about a decade ago. I was tired, and the scenery along the freeway through the Central Valley isn't very interesting. I remember passing an old silo, looking at my car clock and it was 3:17 in the morning. Drove some more, past a power line, and it was 3:21. I blinked, shuffled in my seat, and passed that same old silo, and it was back to 3:17. I was in disbelief. I just stared at my clock for a few moments. Drove a little bit more, past the same power line, 3:21. Don't know why or how, but I went backwards about 4 minutes. Never experienced anything similar or since. Deleted. When I was about 8 years old, my kitten Patercrus, named after the Kiss band member because she was a great Abby, got hit and killed by a car. I was devastated. I had rescued her with my older sister from a box in the rain. It was a miracle our parents let us keep her and her brother, Nigel. One day after school, my mother tells me that there had been a freak accident and that my kitten had died. I found out a few years later that she had been hit. Anyway, later that night, I was laying in bed and I felt her kneading, or making biscuits as some may call it, on my legs. I looked back behind me, as I was laying on my stomach, only to see not a thing there. I laid back down and the feeling came back again. Every time I would look behind me, it stopped. To this day, I still believe it was her. TL. Dr. Kitten got killed by car, felt her ghost making biscuits on my legs. Edit. Thank you for the silver, D. You know on cold days inside your car you can breath on the window and draw on the glass? I got in my car, and as I look at the windshield I see a few small baby hands. I thought it was strange someone would let a baby play on my car's windshield. I had an urge to touch the baby prints, and as I touched it, I wiped away the handprints. The handprints were made from inside of my locked car. This is probably the strangest, creepiest unexplained phenomena that's ever happened to me. Deleted. I had a recurring nightmare of a pitch black parasite sucking the life out of me. Sometimes it waited for me in dark corners to go to bed. My cats always slept on my bed during that time. For me it was a very stressful time. I got an itch at the place of my chest where I dreamed the parasite was sucking my life out of me. I got sick and felt a pea-sized lump. I went to my doc and they ordered a biopsy of that lump. As it turned out I had male breast cancer at the age of 28. After I got well again the dream never came back and my cats slept in their places again and not on my bed. The dream was creepy enough. What it made for me were my cats protecting me. Cats are remarkably in tune with human health. Many stories of cats in nursing homes spending time with someone right before they die. My own cat will never leave my side when I'm really sick. It's quite interesting. Deleted. I had a schnauzer that could hear a cat stalk across a Persian rug. The slightest noise could wake her from a slumber and set off her constant barking. She made a great tent companion while on backpacking trips. Bears, raccoons and skunks would all get fair warning if they came within range of our campsite. One morning we woke up from a night without interruptions in the backcountry of SW Colorado, and I found my tent's central guy line was no longer staked down by the aluminum stake that I had used, but instead by a piece of aspen branch that had been carved into what looked like a tiki statue. Nothing too ornate, but a snarling face with teeth had been carved from the bark, and it had obviously been heated in a fire to give it a brown color. My dog didn't make a sound, and I apparently slept harder than I thought. I scrambled out of the tent and looked around the small alpine lake. Whenever I think about doing a rural camping trip by myself, this is the kind of stuff I imagine happening. So creepy. I got this voicemail. https://vocaroo.com/1bsowowgmiga close bracket out of the blue about 2 years ago, and I still think about it to this day. It was from a number I didn't recognize in Texas. They called twice early in the morning while I was sleeping and left this voicemail. The entire thing is unsettling. It's an old woman. The entire thing sounds like a coded message about some type of meeting. The weirdest part is there are 2 sounds of someone hanging up at the end, so I don't know if someone called me and played a recording. The whole thing is really bizarre and creeps me out. I've googled the number various times over the past 2 years and have had no luck finding any sort of clue about who left the message or why. Not really noteworthy, but being at my apartment and doing work for school, only to receive a text to be told that my online assignment had 4 wrong answers. Just out of the blue, no contact ID or anything. I began to slightly panic and do virus checks and other safety measures. I saved my files to my cloud and reset my computer for safety. To this day I run a VPN and antivirus. For someone to look at what you're doing and to just say something in a text makes second guess how safe you are on the internet. But, did you have 4 wrong answers? Not creepy as such, more just unexplained. As a kid I was round a friend's house after school. It was a sunny day, so we went to the park near his house, then through the woods there. His younger brother was with us as well. In the woods, beside the path, there were red berries on the ground. The berries had been arranged into 3 stick figures, which was weird as there were 3 of us. We got back to the house, and my friend and I decided to go back to take another look. His brother stayed at the house. When we got back there were only 2 stick figures. My friend snapped a photo on his phone, then kicked the berries, and we ran back to the house. I have no idea what was going on. Was it just some kind of prank being pulled on us? Edit. Changed floor to ground. I meant ground. I have no idea why I typed floor originally. Now that's still creepy ASF. Maybe around age 14, early 90s. We were traveling from TX up to Tacoma, WA. We were about out of money, almost out of gas, no food, stuck in Chico, California. I sat in the car while mom took my younger sisters to the restroom at a gas station. I was riddled with anxiety about our situation and looking down. The car door opened and I looked up. A lady that looked like a brown-haired Brady mom sat in the seat and faced me. She said, "It seems like you're down on your luck. Take this and give it to your mom. Tell her to pay it forward someday to someone who needs it." I looked down into my hand and there was a $100 bill. I looked up and she had disappeared. Nowhere in the parking lot, just vanished. I cried. When mom came back I told her what happened and she cried. We got gas. There was a guy selling oranges on the side of the road and we bought a bag and went to local park that had a bar. Thank you, stranger lady with invisible powers. We never forgot your kindness. Did you pay it forward? This didn't exactly happen to me, but I got some backlash and bad vibes from it. My best friend and his mom were moving out of their house. They were the only ones living in the house, and he went to take one last selfie in his room. When he showed the picture to his mom, she goes, "Who is that?" Upon further inspection he notices there was a straight up white face, almost like a mask, looking over his shoulder from the attic hatch above his room. He always heard things from the attic but never saw anything. A few weeks later we went on a wrestling trip and stayed in a hotel. He showed the pic around to everyone in our room, and then some spooky things started happening. In our room we began hearing knocks on our door when nobody was there. We also saw flashes or glimpses of a figure in the mirror in our room. Everyone was a little freaked out about it and thought it could be the demon. Right after quarantine started, I got a package in the mail. It was addressed to my name and my address and contained one pink starburst and nothing else. To this day, I have no idea who sent it or why. The return address was a vacant office space across the country. Edit. I did not eat it. The postmark matched the address I believe, but it's been so long I'm not positive. There is one friend I'm thinking could have done it, but she has since passed away. It was not sent from overseas. It uses my full name, which I don't go by for anything except legal documents. I have a nickname I use almost exclusively. We had only been in this house for 8 months before I got this, and we don't really know our neighbors, and my Amazon account is under my husband's information. And thank you for the awards. If that's a prank by someone you know, that's a really good one. They know you'll ponder about it the rest of your life. I would cut weight train for wrestling in high school, which meant a lot of dark night runs at the middle school track. It was an old gravel one close to the woods with no lights. I didn't like running at the high school track for some reason, so I'd just go there. I'd hold my phone to time my laps, and one night while I was looking down at it, someone tackled me out of nowhere. We rolled around on the ground and he never said a word. Just grunted. Luckily, I got up and ran towards the middle school. I ran into some people and they called the cops. I left all of my stuff behind and he didn't take any of it. It was pretty strange. Was camping alone in a small one-person tent. All snug and secure in the tent, I went to sleep. Was woken by a clap of thunder at 3 AM. To discover both the inner and outer tent door was wide open. That was freaky. Man, I love camping, but I don't think I'd ever be able to go camping alone. Even in an RV. When I was 16/17, I was taking a warm bath in a stormy night. At a certain moment, when I looked to the windows, a thunder fell and the light exposed a silhouette of a tall and very skinny creature with long arms and a head that I can only describe as similar to the Martian from that 2000s Justice League cartoon. I think about this moment every now and then and it gives me the creeps. A random cat on the street once protected me from a man who I didn't realize was following me. I was, stupidly, talking on my phone while walking home at night. I saw a man who was talking to himself near a park and I deliberately chose to walk down another street to avoid him. In the middle of my phone conversation, this orange cat comes up beside me and starts walking next to me. We walk in tandem for about 3 blocks, me telling the person I was talking to how funny this was. Suddenly, the cat starts to turn around and head back the other way. I look and see that same man I'd seen earlier, who had changed his original direction and had been following me for a few blocks. The cat got in between us and howled at him until he turned around and went the other way. Then the cat and I walked another block together, at which point he peeled off into a yard. I double checked and the man had disappeared. I can't be sure that the man wished me harm, but I know I wouldn't have noticed him if it weren't for that cat. I never believed in guardian angels or anything of that sort until I had that experience. I woke up in the bath at a very specific time, like 5:45. Twice. 10 years in between. Water was getting cold. I was naked. No memory of getting there. Some fragments of like seeing my own hand turning on the tap. No drugs or alcohol or even medication involved. The worst thing was the fear. When I woke up I felt an inexplicable, almost primordial, dread. Lasted 4 hours. I was shaking, couldn't function. Still freaks me out thinking about it. Might have been 3 times, I can't remember properly. I still get the shakes from the memory. Edit to at, oh gosh you guys, thank you so much for the awards. My first. Sounds like sleepwalking. Waking up from sleepwalking in any place other than where you fell asleep can really mess with your brain. Deleted. This one in particular is haunting. Worked as a tour guide in an old 18th century mansion and lots of unexplained things would happen quite regularly. This one time while I was with some guests in the former ballroom, a little boy asked his mother, "Mommy, why are there children crying upstairs?" Of course nobody else could hear it, but above us would have been the old nursery where 2 young girls died in the 19th century. Nursery was on the 3rd floor and the entire level just had a very strange vibe to it. Still gives me the creeps thinking about it. I was deployed to Iraq and we stayed in a former prison in Baghdad. During the night we would see and hear strange things. The base at this time only had soldiers, but we would hear children playing from inside the prison. One day we decided to dig deeper to see where the kids were. When we finally found where the noise was coming from, we found a room with the ceiling caved in. We didn't find any kids but found kids' books, toys and kids' clothes. Everything looked like it wasn't moved in weeks. We continued to hear the kids in the year we spent there. I'm sure a ton of crazy shit happened in that prison. I was putting my daughter to bed, and she was talking about her godmother. BC, we were reading a book that her godmother had gotten her. Her godmother died in 2019 of breast cancer. She was my very best friend, more like a sister, and she doted on my daughter. We are reminiscing about her, and my daughter's twinkle lights she has on her ceiling starts going off. They have multiple settings and they are on the rainbow setting. Not too weird, maybe they have a short or something. I go to turn them off. They aren't plugged in. I figure it's my friend saying hi. She loved rainbows. I'm not superstitious, but she promised to stick around and haunt us. I find it comforting. Those lights still go off every now and then. I was about 10 when this took place. I'm in my early 30s now. I remember it was well into late night hours when I saw my grandmother was standing at the front screen door looking outside. She was talking to someone. I saw she was talking to my dad. I couldn't see my dad's face cause he was facing away from her. He was shirtless. He had a very large distinct mole in the middle of his back, so I knew it was him. He was mumbling something I couldn't understand. My grandmother was telling him something along the lines of, "If you love them so much, why did you go and do this?" My mom wasn't there with us to see this. She had left moments before after she got a call letting us know my dad had been driving drunk and hit a mule on the highway. My dad was in the hospital hanging on to life. Edit, added age and approximate time. Did your father recover? I had a horse run in front of my car, mere feet away. It came out of nowhere, running full tilt. It was so close my friends following me thought it was behind my car. A horse or mule would be devastating to hit. One of my cats had been missing for a few weeks. I had given her up as gone. While on the phone with a friend 100 miles away, who has never seen my house, he interrupts himself from talking about work and says with a strange urgency, "Doug, open your front door. Your cat is sitting on the porch waiting to come in," and of course upon opening the door, I find her just casually sitting there. We were both beyond blown away. Between sobs of joy I asked, "How did you know?" and he said, "I don't know, man." That was really weird. We caught a feral cat in our neighborhood and gave it to my in-laws who live in the country and will always take another barn cat. They got him cleaned up, vaccinated, and he seemed to like it there for about a month and then disappeared in October. It could have been coyotes, bear, cougar. They were sad but not surprised. Christmas Eve we drove down the hill from their house a mile away and I swore I saw a calico cat with a bent tail just like his. No one believes me. Last June, they opened the front door and there he was. I once caught my neighbor staring at me outside my bedroom window while I was straightening my hair with no trousers on, and I immediately ducked under my window pane as soon as I saw him. He was legit stood in this alleyway that connects the street's back gardens, arms crossed, and there for at least 15 more minutes just staring through my window. I even got a picture of it, pretty sure I was 15. Ick. There aren't even proper words to describe how gross that guy is for that. When I was about 10 years old, I had a pretty scary dream. In this dream, my mom drowned in quicksand and my little brother, 7 or 8 at the time, jumped in to save her. In the process, he broke his arm. The next day, my little brother broke his arm. No quicksand involved and my mom was never in danger IRL, but still, I was super freaked out by the fact that I had dreamt about my little brother's injury literally the night before. To this day, when I think about it, it gives me chills. Edit, spelling mistake. I once woke up in a tent in the middle of the night while camping in the Upper Peninsula with my friends. I heard this dude shouting and screaming about a bear, telling it to FCK off and stuff. Naturally I woke my buddy up and told him what was up and he said he could hear it too. We got out of our tent and searched for almost an hour around the campsite and found nothing, then proceeded to find a Red Wings hat that was neither of ours. We took watch turns the rest of the night. And I'm pretty sure he still has the hat to this day. Note, up is a term used by people familiar with Michigan as the Upper Peninsula, the arrow-looking thing above the mitten. Ghost of dude eaten by bear came back. It was around 3 AM and I was on my computer in my mom's basement when I was 17. There was a fruit cellar door next to my desk. All of a sudden I hear 3 knocks coming from inside of the fruit cellar door. There was no other entrance to the fruit cellar. I freaked out and ran up the stairs and ran outside, thinking maybe some of my friends were playing a joke on me, but it was the middle of winter and snow was falling and there were no footprints around my house and my mother was fast asleep. I got in my car and drove to my friend's house and moved to my own place shortly thereafter 20 years later, and I still won't go in that basement at night. Waited at your mom lol. I woke up for some reason and I heard the hammer of a gun being pulled back in front of my face. I could hear the metal on metal and the creaking and the clicks. I opened my eyes thinking I was about to die and nothing was there. The previous owner of the house had overdosed in the living room and used to deal guns. We found some in the attic. I sometimes wake up to extremely loud unnerving sounds. It's called an auditory hallucination called exploding head syndrome. If it's ever happened before after that, it may have been that. Deleted. At least now you know who to blame for eating the last slice of leftover pizza. A few days ago, I woke up feeling something horribly wrong within my mouth. I moved my tongue around a bit and realized that I bit my tongue in my sleep. I'm not talking about some slight nibble or something. No, I ripped the tip with my front teeth. On top of this, I couldn't find my glasses. I always leave them on the nightstand next to my bed before I sleep, but this one morning, they just vanished. I tore my room asunder looking for them, but no luck. Whatever happened that night while I was asleep, or maybe even unconsciously active, it's really been inconveniencing me for the last few days. When I was about 5, I was going down the stairs of my house when suddenly there was some sort of mist in front of me. It had what I can only assume were eyes, and all the colors from the room were being pulled into individual strands then sucked into the eyes like a black hole. I screamed, and it disappeared through the wall to the other side of the house where my younger brother was. He screamed shortly after I did. My mom was nearer to him, so she went to him first. When I got into the room where he was really scared and he kept on saying the eyes, the rainbow eyes. We hadn't talked, so he didn't know what I had just seen. My parents knew a priest, so they brought him over and he did some sort of a blessing. We never had any issues after that. It was definitely very creepy. I was somewhere around 17 years old and a guy started jerking off next to me on the highway and just kept following me and slowing down next to me and continuing to do it. I was just thinking about it the other day for some reason. It was by definition creepy. I was chilling in a cafe several years ago when someone I had never seen before walked in. He came up to me and asked, "Are you?" My first name, my full name. I said, "Yeah." He nodded and then walked out of the store and I never saw him again. To this day, I don't know who that was and how he knew who I was. About 10 years ago, my dad was in the hospital and my mom asked me one night if I could go and stay with him for a while the next morning because she had a medical appointment of her own. It was a cold November morning and when I went out to leave, there were starlings swirling everywhere, a murmuring I think it's called. They were all around me, like a bird tornado. I headed to the hospital and made my way up to his room. When I got there, he was laying in bed facing the door. He was suffering from dementia and not all in the moment. He saw me and said, "Hey son, what are you doing here?" I said that I thought I would come and keep him company for a bit. He stated, "You didn't have to do that. I sent the birds to tell you." I felt chills down my neck and turned toward the window. After a few seconds I asked him how he sent the birds. His response was, "What birds? Just strange." One time in the army I was out doing field exercises and we were going to raid the enemy force during the night. So we hunkered down for an early rest before the sun went down. Next thing I know, I wake up and I'm wandering in the field holding nothing but my rifle and field blanket. Scared the crap out of myself, but somehow I could sense people around me. I thought at the time they were part of my unit. Took me about 20 minutes or so to somehow make it back to the campsite without anyone noticing. Still makes me wonder what could have happened to me. Since I was a child, I'd have a nightmare about this haunted house and, specifically, the balcony and upstairs. The upstairs floor plan was such that there was a hallway running horizontally, with each door to the left facing the balcony. I would be so unnerved in my dream, walking down this hallway, the hair on my neck standing up, just feeling the presence of evil. In 2019, my wife and I went to an architect to design a house for us to build in the Acadian Creole style. The upstairs floor plan was exactly like the one in my nightmare. We scrapped the plans. And it's a good thing we all know how 2020 turned out. I feel like someone was warning me not to build that house since I was a child. I lost my patches at the beginning of 2018. One of the things that Patches loved to do was unroll the toilet paper from the roller by my toilet. I kept a partial roll on the roller just for her. She'd unroll it, and I would roll it back up again. Mine was sitting on top of a cabinet beside the toilet. Since she died, I guess she is still around because I keep having to roll that back up on a regular basis even during the months-long time I didn't have a cat. To this day, once or twice a week I still have to re-roll that toilet paper. And the cat I have now has no interest in the toilet paper at all. I figure it's just Patch's way of letting me know she's still around. When I was in 2nd grade I was getting the mail, and when I picked out a letter for me I got a flash of this lady who I had never seen before, and I was like, okay, whatever. Turned out it was an image of my 2nd grade teacher before I even met her on the first day of school, wearing the exact clothes I pictured. The letter was a welcome to class letter from her. I got a flash like that one time. I was grocery shopping with my sister, and ran down an aisle to grab a bottle of salad dressing. IDK where the Hidden Valley still comes in glass, but this bottle was, and as soon as I touched it I got a very distinct impression of shattering glass. It was like I popped into another dimension for 1/4 of a second, witnessed a glass vessel shattering near my face, and then popped back. I was just like, a car eye, and went about my business. When we got home we dropped all of the bags on the kitchen floor, and as I was unpacking I found the HVR bottle broken and leaking in the bottom of a bag.